Hey guys, about Big Stuff here. Welcome to another version 2.5 firmware update video. So we've got so much stuff in this update that we're coming out with that we wanted to start making a bunch of different videos highlighting some of the biggest changes. And one of the biggest changes that we've done is we've added the ability to add RPM offsets to all of your rev limiter inputs based on however you want to configure it. Okay. So what you're going to see here first off is under the system menu, you're going to have a new rev limiter section. So if you're using the original software, it'll be under system. You'll see a rev limits folder. This is our new user interface that we're coming out with here. That's going to have a nav tree design, but you're going to go down to system and then rev limiters. Okay. Inside the rev limiter section, you're going to have a bunch of different inputs that you can use to activate rev limiters. You can have a 3-step, a 2-step, a half-step, and a max engine. Okay. The 3-step is, in the big stuff world, what we use to do everything as far as your race timer, as far as your first gear retard, your boost controller. The 3-step's the important one, okay? The 2-step, however, though, is anything you want it to be. It can be a burnout rev limiter. It can be a turbo, boost builder, if you would. It can be anything, okay? If you activate the 3 and the 2-step together, however, though, you are going to get the half step. All right. So half step, for a good example, is, let's just say you are a big high horsepower bracket car and you're racing your 7-second bracket car and you're racing a 10-second car. Well, you don't want to be parked at 5,000 RPM or something very high for X amount of time for the slow guy in front of you. So what you can do is you can park at a much lower RPM by activating both of the 2-step and the 3-step. You'll sit at a half-step RPM. You'll lift off of the 2-step, go right to your 3-step for, let's just say, a second or so, okay? So it's very nice to have that. It's very handy. This way, if you want to have a burnout rev limiter as well, you can still have a burnout rev limiter. You've got the other one to play with, okay? The high rev is just simply that. That's your max engine RPM one. So whenever you hit the max engine RPM, you're going to hit that target, okay? So over here, we've also created a new section for the rev limit error tables. So if I come over here, you're going to see here that we also have a new menu, grouped everything together so that you actually have completely individual tables for all of the different inputs. All right. So this one over here in the upper left-hand corner is my 3-step. This one is my 2-step. Down here, lower left-hand corner is the half-step. Max engine's on the lower right-hand corner. So what this means is you have full adjustability over all the inputs as far as how hard the ignition is going to rev limit. Okay. So what do these numbers even mean? Well, a 31 is full power, a 0 is no power. Now, when I mean no power, I mean it is no power. You got to be very careful with numbers 10 or lower. It's really going to knock the steam out of the engine. It's doing its job, but it's also going to knock a lot of steam out of the engine. So we generally typically stick to 5 to 10s and higher for these ETM numbers, but we always have to go with a table that works. So they come out a lot of times with the 0 to 20 with our factory firmware. You will typically adjust higher based on the actual rev limiting that you actually see in the operation of the engine itself. Okay. So what we've allowed to do here is we've allowed, or we programmed in modifiers that you can add. So for example, on this 3-step, let's just say we want to do a boost builder. Okay. So I would come over here to my rev limit modifier selection, and you're going to have a 3-step modifier, which we can then turn on. And then you're going to have some conditions here that have to be satisfied depending on how you want to do it to actually activate this table. So I can just simply say, you know what? It's always going to be on, and I'm not going to have a CP condition. The CP condition means that I have a custom port editor condition that has to be satisfied before this table is on. If I don't have a CP condition, if it's disabled, then I'm going to say, you know what? It's always going to be on. And then whenever the 3-step is active, this table will go true. Because you have to remember, these are modifier tables that are only going to go active when the 3-step condition is true. So if I enable this condition again like it was, if I come over to the custom port editor, you're going to see here that I have an RPM modifier 3-step. And this application, I'm saying, okay, it's enabled when the active value is true above 25%. I'm going to tell that 3-step modifier table to go true. All right. So if I come back over here to this 3-step modifier, I have chosen RPM and boost as my 2 axes. I can have a 1D table if I want, but I made it 2D. And you can see here I've got all these different conditions here that I can work with. All right. So now if I come down to my 3-step RPM modifier curve, I've said, okay, I want to have it add 3,000 RPM if I'm at 1 pound of boost. And then as the boost is made, I'm going to have it come down. Now, this is one of our test vehicles here. This is an example for you. But you can see here that when I get to 2.6 pounds or above, there's no RPM offset. It's going to be set. So you have to remember, in our case, we have it set for 2,500 RPM. All right. So let's go look at a log here. And we're going to come over here and look at this starting line here, this section here. And what this is going to show you here is a couple different things. This right here, okay, is the active RPM limit threshold. All right. So what this means is that in the actual data logs now, again, with this firmware, we give you the ability to actually see what all the current RPM active thresholds are for the 2-step, the 3-step, the half-step, and the max. So the current rev limit active RPM threshold right now is 5,500 because that's what our max is set for. All right. So you can see here we had this quick little blip here that went down to 2,500. Well, that was because we briefly met the criteria for the 3-step going true, and the offset hadn't taken a hold yet. Remember, right? We programmed in a 3,000 RPM offset to my 2,500. Well, remember, it was on the custom ported editor, right? The custom ported editor had to be set to 75%, and that's when it was allowed to go true. So as soon as we basically hit it, I'm sorry, it's 50%. As soon as we hit that, boom, it raised our RPM threshold back up. So now we're sitting at 5,500. But you can see here that 2,500 is currently my actual 3-step RPM. My 3-step input is this tan line right here, this where it says active. You can see here that it's active, okay? And now I'm sitting at 5,500 because the boost isn't there yet. I'm only at a half a pound of boost, right? So now what's happening here is I'm starting to make a little bit of boost. There's 1 pound of boost, okay? Now you can see the RPM limit starting to come down. See the red line here? 49.38, 47.51. You can see here that it's starting to come down slowly but surely, and that's because I'm making more boost. And you can see here that as soon as we get down to our target boost, if you would, now I'm sitting at 2,500 RPM. Okay, there is no more offset. I'm sitting at 2.7 pounds of boost. If I come over here, I can actually bring this up. I can say, okay, let me go to my system section, my rev limiters, 3-step RPM modifier curve. Okay, I can see here that over here I was adding 3,000 RPM because I was only at 1 pound of boost. And then as it starts to come up, I'm sorry, come down if you would. As I start to make more boost, the RPM threshold starts to drop. And now when I come over here, I'm sitting right around this number and there's no RPM offset because I've made the boost. Okay, and now it shows you, hey, my active RPM threshold is 2,500 because there's no more offset. If I was to come back over here, I wasn't making enough boost. I was at 5,500, but I was on the 3-step, but I gave it 3,000 RPM. So it shows you exactly what your 3-step target is, but it also shows you what the current active rev limit is, because maybe you've got other things pushing on that actual rev limit active number. Well, this gives you a breakdown. Maybe your 2-step is actually overriding a little bit higher. Maybe your half-step's bringing it down lower. So you'll always know what the actual 3-step is that the ECU is targeting. That's why we have this rev limit active RPM threshold. And again, that's only available in this new update. So you can see here as we come down, as we make the boost, boom, we flatline. There were a couple little spikes right there where it was going to go up. And that was because the boost just came down just a little bit and you got these tiny, tiny, tiny little blips. Again, we're not talking much boost here. This is one of our test vehicles here, but this shows you how the RPM offset threshold table works. Okay, so really high, comes down when we make the boost. And again, you have all these different criteria that you can meet here as far as the modifier selection. It doesn't have to be RPM or boost. Obviously, we have a bunch of different stuff in here. Mile an hour EGT, got your laser height sensor, all the different inputs, okay? All these different things here can provide an offset to that table, all right? All of the other tables work exactly the same. So if you wanted to add a 2-step modifier, a half step, or a high rev, you can have all these working in conjunction. And that's why that our rev limit active RPM threshold number is so important, because that shows you the current actual RPM that you're actually sitting at. Okay. So we hope you like that. It gives you a bunch of different options as far as where you want to park this thing on the on an offset curve for your rev limiters. Very adjustable. The custom port editor basically gives you complete adjustability as far as even an active on time, a delay off time. You can pulse it. But in the custom port editor, you have every variable that we offer you can choose from, versus just these data sources here, which are the basic inputs. Basically, this is just all the inputs that we give you the adjustability on. But with the custom port editor, you have every variable that you can choose from to say, you know what, until this is met, then enable these tables. Okay. So any questions on that, please give us a shout. Support at BigStuffTPM.com. Please make sure to check out our social media at Facebook and Instagram. If you have any questions at all about this, please give us a shout. Again, it's very cool to be able to do this here. You can see here that the engine RPM definitely is up higher. That's the white line here. And then you can see here as we make the boost, it comes right down, then it flatlines at 2,500 RPM. So it just gives you an example as far as how this works. We were over almost 500 RPM over our target right there, but the rev limit RPM target was coming down as well. So it works really well. So by all means, reach out to us if you have any questions at all. Again, this is only on our version 2.5 firmware update. If you don't have that, give us a shout. You can get that. It'll be available on our website here shortly to download here for our full release. And if you have any questions, please give us a shout. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.